Bougainville looks set to become the world's newest country, so what could that mean to powers vying for influence in the South Pacific? The autonomous region falls under the government of Papua New Guinea, but overwhelmingly voted for independence 6 years ago. Now its leadership is calculating next moves before a planned breakaway in 2027. So will its controversial mining-based economy prove the key to becoming a new country, or the curse that prevents it? I'm Andrea Sankey, and today's newsmaker is Bougainville. Well, the oceanic nation of Bougainville has wanted independence from Papua New Guinea for years. But with most of its budget coming from Port Moresby, that hasn't been granted. Now, in the current geopolitical context of the South Pacific, Bougainville's status matters. It's home to a massive copper mine that was decommissioned following massive environmental damage and disputes over its profits, mostly going to Papua New Guinea and Australia. But going forward, that mine could be the key to Bougainville's financial independence. And China looks first in line to get its resources. Here's a look now at the complexities of Bougainville's push for independence.
In the heart of the South Pacific lies a tiny archipelago that could become the world's newest nation, Bougainville. The remote islands form an autonomous province of Papua New Guinea. And nationhood has a due date, September 1st, 2027, after the territory voted overwhelmingly in favour of independence in a referendum held in 2019. But separatist history on the island is fraught. The would-be nation finds itself at the crux of competing interests as it hurtles towards its independence date. Papua New Guinea was previously administered as an Australian territory, but when it gained independence of its own in 1975, Bougainville was included in the new nation, largely against its will. Geographically and culturally, Bougainville has always seen itself as much closer to the Solomon Islands. The Panguna mine was once one of the world's largest open-cut copper and gold mines and accounted for almost 45% of PNG's export revenues at one stage. But very little of this went to Bougainville locals. Local grievances over the mine spilled into violent conflict in 1988. Armed resistance, led by the Bougainville Revolutionary Army, forced Panguna Mine's closure. It sparked a nearly decade-long brutal civil war with Papua New Guinea, leaving an estimated 20,000 people dead, around 10% of the island's population at the time. A peace agreement was signed in 2001. Bougainville gained special autonomy within Papua New Guinea, but the desire for full independence remained, along with the scars of the past. The mine remains derelict to this day, and massive environmental damage continues to haunt the area.
Everything we're seeing here is just tailings.
But the 2019 independence referendum result has spurned new interest in the old mine. The president of Bougainville sees the mine as a chance for the future nation to stand on its own 2 feet, with revenue staying on the island this time.
By looking forward, we are looking at opening Panguna Mine. Panguna Mine is a guarantee to Bougainville's aspiration moving forward.
It's estimated the mine has some of the largest copper deposits on Earth, as well as several hundred tons of gold. The prospect of forging new diplomatic relationships with South Pacific territories for strategic purposes has not been lost on China, which is a significant contributor to infrastructure on Bougainville. Bougainville's government has also tried to court the United States, offering a military base on the island in return for US support in reopening the mine. Australia, to the south, also invests heavily in Bougainville and sees the island as part of an inner security arc. Meanwhile, Papua New Guinea has the ultimate say in ratifying any official independence, and PNG has expressed concerns that the 2027 deadline might be too soon for Bougainville to be economically self-sufficient. Bougainville has a history of being subjected to the whims of external empires and foreign powers: Britain, Germany, Japan, and Australia. Can these tiny islands forge ahead on their own, breaking away from Papua New Guinea to finally be a nation controlled by and answerable to only itself? Or will it find itself once again buffeted by the storms and strife of larger powers jockeying for influence in the region?
So will Bougainville find itself in the middle of a superpower power play, and where would that leave its people? Well, joining me now to debate that and much more are from Sydney, editor-in-chief of the Australian Journal of Anthropology and Bougainville specialist, Anna-Karina Hankins; from Beijing, senior fellow at the Taipei Institute, Einar Tangen; and from Canberra, senior fellow in the Department of Pacific Affairs at the Australian National University and host of the Little Red podcast, Graham Smith. Thanks all so much for being with me. First, I have to start with Graham and ask where you think this independence is heading. I mean, the vote was almost unanimous in 2019, and now it seems the deadline is September 2027. So do you think they're ready to be a new nation, and will it be worth it?
Ooh, there's a lot of questions in there. Look, the basic problem Bougainville faces is not geopolitics. It's the attitude of the Papua New Guinean state. They had some talks recently in New Zealand that went absolutely nowhere. In true Melanesian fashion, they called it some sort of Melanesian agreement, but no one agreed really on anything. The Bougainvillians think they're going to be independent in 2 years from now, on September the 1st. And the Papua New Guineans under James Marape are talking about a 30-year time frame. So they're on completely different pages. And what happens 2 years from now, if Bougainville unilaterally declares independence, will be interesting to say the least.
Interesting to see, but I mean, is it worth a fight if it comes down to that?
Look, a fight in the sense of a geopolitical battle. I think there's a lot of people, analysts, strategists, call them what you will, that are concerned that they look at Timor-Leste and they saw China was the first country to recognize Timor-Leste not once but twice in the 1970s, and then again when it gained its independence more recently. And they think a similar thing might happen in Bougainville. I'm not so sure, because the situation in Bougainville is very different to Timor-Leste, where you had a UN mission, and it was always clear a new nation was going to be born. In the case of Bougainville, who comes to their side if they unilaterally declare independence is really unclear.
Okay, let me ask Anna-Karina, if you agree with Graham's position there. Would it be messy if independence is declared September 1st, 2027, and PNG just isn't ready for it or doesn't want it? Or do you think they've already let go, in a sense, of Bougainville?
Well, I concur with Graham's findings, but PNG has already started to transfer most of the functions and powers to Bougainville, including ownership of the Panguna mine that set off the conflict, the 10-year civil warfare in central Bougainville. But yes, it is problematic, and it's also very uncertain what the future will bring for Bougainville. But what is clear is that the current president of the autonomous region of Bougainville, Ismail Tororama, is adamant that independence will be achieved by September 27. And he's made several declarations that it will happen regardless whether PNG is going to ratify it or not.
Okay. I mean, a lot of the issue is really, as far as independence is concerned and whether or not it could work, is based on the economy, which is more or less has been based on mining. So can Bougainville manage, the massive powers also involved, vying for rights to copper and gold mines that are there? And will the environment itself be protected, or is really all at risk of exploitation if independence is declared prematurely?
Look, Bougainvillians are diverse. You know, there are various opinions about how the future of Bougainville should look like. While there's a strong lobby for mining to reopen the mine in order to bankroll Bougainville's independence, there's also other voices who emphasize that this mining should be relatively small scale, should not expand, and that there's other avenues that should be explored, like tourism, agriculture, and fisheries. Yes, and at the same time, at present, Rio Tinto is they've done an investigation about the pollution caused by the Rio Tinto mine, and there's negotiations about what to do with this pollution. In addition, alluvial mining has caused a lot of pollution more recently and is still causing pollution. So those are all issues that need to be addressed, as well as the many alluvial miners that are currently living and working in the mine pit. And they have to be compensated if they're going to be removed to allow operations of the Panguna mine or a nearby mine to start.
Okay. And Graham, I can see you agree there. But let me ask Einar, because there are concerns that Bougainville, should it become independent, could become, another case like the Solomon Islands. And we know the Solomon Islands are kind of viewed as the site of a real standoff for military dominance in the South Pacific. We've talked about this before, especially when the Solomon Islands, changed sides from supporting Taiwan to backing the One China policy. Do you see Bougainville as a parallel situation?
No, I really don't. I mean, Beijing does not have a dog in this fight. They have a long-standing policy where they do not interfere in the internal affairs of other countries, especially when it comes to issues of partition. China, as you know, through the SCO, is absolutely adamant that if countries divide, it has to be legally, cannot be by force. So they're not going to be interested in having a base, just out within Australia's reach. That it doesn't make sense. Why the aggravation? They are interested in, obviously, in minerals and things like that, but it's not the Chinese government so much as individual investors who see an opportunity here, perhaps a weak country, an opportunity to strike a deal, that type of thing.
Okay, so you're certain that there would be no military base ever? Because it's interesting, because we know the president of Bougainville went to the United States a few years back and had warned the United States that, if they don't come to kind of invest in their own interests in Bougainville, that China is there to step in. Do you think that was only to kind of provide a carrot of sorts to the U.S. to get them to invest?
Yeah, I mean, you have a country that has 300,000 people. It needs a lot of work. It had past problems divided between land owners and the people who aren't large landowners. There's a lot of different interests. You have the miners, you have people who are interested in the ecology, and then you have the natives who are very much say this is a sacred island and it has to be protected. So you have many different currents there. But the fact is, if you want to be independent, you have to have some sort of income stream. They currently don't really have one. So the question is how they do that, and going around to great powers and saying, hey, if you don't do this, the other one will. I mean, they're not the only country doing that. The question is, does anybody really want to get involved? It's not going to be easy. Remember, this was the mine that was closed 10 years ago because of strife. And at that time, it was the people of Bougainville who rose up and they said, we don't want this mine. We're not being compensated. And you're ruining sacred land. So anybody who goes in there is going to inherit a lot of problems.
So, Graham, would you agree with Einar there? And I mean, who would be potentially the most responsible partner that Bougainville could have going forward? If it does get its independence and mining is going to be the industry, where would you see its best partnerships being developed?
Look, I think part of what is likely to go on is, as Anna has described, they'll use the China card as leverage to get some movement